Right now, this is our time in the studio with Carolina Coral. I welcome the viewers of Freedom. Let's get straight to the important news. This morning, Russians attacked the railway infrastructure near Sloviansk in the Donetsk region. Restoration of the tracks and the contact network will continue until the end of the day. This was reported by Ukrzaliznytsia. In the meantime, 8 reserve buses will help transport passengers across the damaged section. In total, over the past day, 4 people were killed and another was injured as a result of Russian attacks on the Donetsk region. The police recorded more than 20 strikes on the front line and residential areas. Last night, the Russian army launched more than 90 drones over Ukrainian territory, including both strike drones and decoys. And, as reported by the Air Force Command of Ukrainian Armed Forces, Ukrainian air defense managed to neutralize 68 of the drones. In the north and east of the country, the air attacks were repelled by aviation, anti-aircraft missile troops, electronic warfare, and drone units, as well as mobile fire groups of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Since the beginning of September, Russia has used 1,300 attack drones, 900 guided aerial bombs, and up to 50 missiles of various types against Ukraine. This was reported by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. According to him, during the first week of autumn, the enemy struck 15 regions. The president noted that the Kremlin continues to drag out this war and is trying to turn diplomacy into a blatant farce. He also supported the position of American leader Donald Trump. To unblock diplomacy, effective restrictions on the trade of Russian oil and gas are needed.
We must strengthen sanctions pressure with sanction tools for Ukraine and make it impossible for similar invasions to happen again in the future. Lasting peace requires effective and reinforced security guarantees. We are putting the elements of a reliable peace into the future. Thank you to all partners who support Ukraine and our people. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
An ambulance was attacked by the Russians in the Dnipropetrovsk region. According to Serhiy Lysak, the head of the regional military administration, 2 districts came under fire in total. The aggressor shelled the Nikopol district with artillery and FPV drones and used attack drones on the Sinelnikov district. A 40-year-old man was injured. 3 private houses were also damaged. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine recorded 184 combat clashes on the front lines over the past day. In the North Sloviansk and Kursk directions, Ukrainian troops repelled 8 assault actions by Russian occupiers. Another 10 attacks were repelled by the defense forces in the Kupiansk direction, 20 in the Lyman direction, and 31 in the Novopavlivka direction. The hottest spot on the front remains the Pokrovsk direction. There, Ukrainian defenders repelled 48 assaults by Russian occupiers. Russia lost another 960 soldiers in the war against Ukraine. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. As a result, the total combat losses of the Russian army have exceeded 1,087,000 personnel. In addition, over the past day, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 2 tanks, 39 artillery systems, 1 air defense system, 256 drones, and 119 units of enemy vehicles. Ukrainian intelligence officers foiled the Russians' plans to break through to the borders of Dnipropetrovsk region. The video was published by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. In small groups, Russian invaders tried to break through the line of contact and take up firing positions in buildings. Their goal was to amass forces and continue attacking Ukrainian positions. The video shows the destruction of enemy personnel by drones. Russian soldiers who survived the UAV strikes were disarmed. Ukrainian defenders destroyed an enemy Buk-M1 surface-to-air missile system worth $10 million. This was reported by the National Guard of Ukraine. The operation was carried out by the Lazar strike drone unit. The Buk-M1 is a medium-range surface-to-air missile system, rescue system. In time, it can engage multiple targets at altitudes from 15 meters up to 22 kilometers and at a range of 35 kilometers. They will be taught how to shoot, provide first aid, and understand military topography. At the Zaporizhzhia National Resistance Center, civilians are being trained in military skills. The classes are conducted by instructors who are former military personnel. How Zaporizhzhia residents are learning to defend their country. Watch the report.
Target.
Target. Smooth trigger pull. Back to starting position.
Before they start shooting, the cadets learn the basic skills of handling weapons. Yulia is a student. This is the first time the young woman has attended a class at the National Resistance Center.
I learned how to handle a weapon. I learned how to hold a gun, load and unload it, and fix malfunctions. I believe that every civilian should know how to handle a weapon these days.
After learning shooting techniques, it's time for practice. Each cadet gets 20 rounds. The task is to hit the target from a distance of 40 meters. Violetta has family members who are currently serving in the defense forces. That's why she decided to enroll in the training courses as well. She admits that she had never fired an automatic rifle before.
Yesterday, I couldn't hit the target on my first try, but today I had a lot of shots and hits.
The Zaporizhzhia National Resistance Center launched the courses this spring. In almost 6 months of operation, more than 400 residents of Zaporizhzhia have completed military training here. These skills are useful in everyday life, but this experience will be especially valuable at the front, says Cadet Ilya.
We have a war going on. As everyone knows, I fought.
We are at war, so it's better to have these skills than to have to learn them from scratch later. That way, you'll spend less time on it.
The instructors are satisfied with the training sessions. All the cadets completed their assignments.
All the cadets accomplished their tasks. The hit rate was over 70%. That is, out of 20 bullets, there were 19 and 16 hits. So, in my opinion, that's very good.
The instructors at the center are war veterans with combat experience. Alexander has been on the front lines since the very first day of Russia's full-scale invasion. He defended Kiev, helped liberate Kherson, and fought in the Donbass. After his second injury, he left the army and became a military instructor. Alexander is convinced that training civilians in military skills and teaching them how to handle weapons is essential for the successful defense of the country.
No one attacks the strong. If people know how to use weapons, and our neighbors are aware of this, those neighbors will have less temptation to take our land.
Against the backdrop of Russian aggression against Ukraine, Europe has also started to consider the need for mandatory military training for civilians. In Poland, at the initiative of the government, basic military training courses were launched in the spring of 2023. Train like a soldier. Anyone who wants to can take a free 2-week training course.
Be ready to act. Join the best. Train like a soldier.
In Lithuania, in July of this year, the government launched instructor training courses to teach citizens survival skills. During wartime, and in Germany, civilians can receive free military training with units of the German army. Paid training courses run by private companies are also very popular in European countries. Ola Prydikin, Boris Yakovenko from Zaporizhzhia for Freedom TV channel.
The construction of fortification structures on the Russian border with Finland was announced by the deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev. According to Russian media, Putin allegedly instructed him to strengthen the border. Medvedev believes that Russia supposedly needs to prepare, and I quote, for unfriendly acts from Finland, which recently became a NATO member. He also drew attention to alleged military activity near the Russian border, mentioning the Baltic countries, Poland, and Norway. A second Russian tanker in a short period has already arrived in China, transporting liquefied natural gas. This was reported by Reuters. A vessel flying the Russian flag, carrying 150,000 cubic meters of LNG, was loaded at a plant in northern Siberia on July 19. The facility, the majority of whose shares are owned by the Russian company Novatek, was supposed to become one of the country's largest plants, but it came under sanctions. Meanwhile, as reported by Reuters, 2 more tankers carrying Russian gas are docked in Kamchatka, in the Far East, and a third is in the South China Sea. Ukraine is creating a layered system to counter Russian attack drones. This was stated by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky. Air defense is a priority for the state because the safety of civilians depends on its effectiveness. The new format for protecting Ukrainian airspace was discussed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy with the head of the White House. See the details in our report.
Security guarantees for Ukraine and ways to force Russia to peace. These were the main topics of the phone conversation between the presidents of Ukraine, the United States, and European leaders, participants of the coalition summit who wished to join. According to Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the conversation was lengthy and detailed.
As long as there is no peace, Ukrainians should not have to live under constant Russian attacks. Russian missiles and drones must not be allowed to take lives. Ukraine has proposed that the United States consider a special format for protecting Ukrainian airspace.
Russia attacks Ukrainian cities with missiles and drones every day. Air defense is a key element in protecting civilians in Russia's war against Ukraine. Despite significant international support, the shortage of modern air defense systems remains noticeable.
Russia's main tool in this war is the killing of civilians in our cities. That is why we are working with our partners to obtain more and more advanced air defense systems, as well as modern fighter jets, in order to reduce Russia's ability to attack. And this will push them toward peace. We are counting heavily on America's support in this, as well as on both European and American countries. They will be working on this. And when we talk about security guarantees for Ukraine, there is a coalition of 35 countries willing to participate, and 26 of them are ready to provide real security assurances. This is a very, very important change.
Ukraine is actively working on developing its own long-range weapons. According to President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, tests have already been conducted and have shown positive results. The next stage is mass production. Long-range weapons are definitely a guarantee of Ukraine's security, the head of state emphasized. And now, joint production with partners is actively developing.
In other words, the further we go, the more we gain the necessary resources, which, according to American leader Donald Trump, are a serious trump card in the diplomatic standoff between Kiev and Moscow. They will be significant and weighty when we discuss certain issues and seek compromises with our Russian counterparts. Having serious weaponry that we can use without needing to request special permissions from our American or European partners is exactly the kind of strong argument we need.
The German government plans to fund a large-scale expansion of the Ukrainian Air Force. According to media reports, this plan was presented at the meeting of the coalition of willing countries in Paris by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Berlin proposes to increase the capabilities of Ukrainian air defense by 20% annually, as well as to step up cooperation in the development of Ukrainian-made cruise missiles.
The most important security guarantee we can provide at this moment is sufficient support for the Ukrainian army in its efforts to defend the country. Friedrich Merz, Federal Chancellor of Germany, from a publication in Der Spiegel.
Ukraine is creating a layered system to counter Russian drones, reported Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky. He emphasized that strengthening the country's air defense is a priority both for the state and for the military. After all, the effectiveness of the Anti-Shahed system and the reliability of missile defense determine the safety of Ukraine's rear areas. Protecting Ukraine's skies is a crucial component of ensuring the security of both Ukraine and all of Europe. That's why a European network of modern defense production is needed, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. It should consist of countries that support each other and produce means of protection. Not just for themselves, but for their partners as well. This will make Europe stronger and more resilient.
And now there's a topic ripe for discussion. So, Ukraine is ready to help Slovakia break free from dependence on Russia and ensure energy stability. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated this at a press conference with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. The head of the Ukrainian state emphasized that Ukraine is ready to have joint energy projects with Slovakia and other partners. There's only one principle, Zelenskyy said. These must not be Russian energy resources.
We are ready to have joint energy projects. We are ready to supply oil and gas to Slovakia. But I told Prime Minister Fico this frankly, only if it's not Russian gas or Russian oil, because we are at war.
Russian oil and gas have no future, declared Volodymyr Zelenskyy during the press conference with Fico. In addition to the issue of Europe's energy dependence, the president of Ukraine emphasized that Slovakia supports Ukraine's path toward the European Union and also noted Slovakia's role in ensuring Ukraine's security and the security architecture in Europe. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó said that his country cannot give up Russian oil because it has no other choice. This is how he commented on the news that U.S. President Donald Trump recently called on the EU to stop buying Russian oil. Szijjártó called those who criticize Hungary for importing oil from Russia hypocrites, saying that they themselves buy Russian oil, for example, through Asia. The Hungarian foreign minister also complained that the EU refused. Croatia increased the capacity of the alternative gas pipeline, but at the same time raised the transit fee for gas transportation fivefold. Norway has decided to lower the price cap on oil as part of the sanctions against Russia, which were agreed upon with the European Union. This was announced by the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. With this decision, Norway joined the countries that have already lowered the price cap on Russian oil, from $60 down to almost $47.50 per barrel. Norwegian companies will no longer be able to purchase oil and petroleum products transported by sea above this price, nor provide services for them. Let me remind you that earlier, the UK, Canada, and Switzerland joined the EU's decision.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.